Hello, and welcome to Community Voices, where we talk to Humboldt County's movers and shakers. Today's guest is Brenda Perez from Centro Del Pueblo. And now here's your host, Paul Bressoud.
Hello, and welcome to Access Humboldt's Community Voices. I'm your host, Paul Bressoud. Today, we're speaking with Brenda Perez of Centro Del Pueblo. Centro Del Pueblo. Brenda, welcome to Community Voices. This is my first Skype experience. I would like to ask about your organization, Centro Del Pueblo, and if you could give us an overview of its mission.
Thank you for having me, Paul, and welcome to the Skype, communication world. I'm happy and honored to be the first one. I was with Paul for the first time in Skype. And for talking more about Centro del Pueblo, I want to invite everybody to communicate with us that is interested in supporting the immigrant community from the South. The statement and principal purpose of Centro is to empower the Latinx immigrant community and indigenous peoples from the South of the border. So I'm talking about the South of the continent, people from different backgrounds that come to this county, that immigrate here to work and to live another life.
Now, did you start Centro del Pueblo?
No, my beloved Renee Saucedo, a great activist for human rights, labor rights, and immigrant rights, started this effort in 2016.
Now, are there other groups like this around the state?
Yeah, we have plenty. California is very active. Speaking of immigrant rights, maybe the most known is the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, just for mention some of them.
What about now? Are there, I guess what I'd like to ask, are there groups per county per se where people of immigrant status can go and connect and learn their rights?
That's a very good question, Paul, because the population and the demographics in the state is very interesting, the composition as well. So yes, there is plenty of these organizations. We're going to find them mainly in South California or the Central Valley area. But speaking of Northern California and the location where we are, where the organizations are very few.
Well, that's interesting. On your website, it talked about the Sanctuary Committee showcasing the importance of immigration questions here in Northern California. Does Northern California have the same needs as more higher density demographics like Southern California?
In terms of immigrant rights, absolutely yes. In terms of, when you talk about different scenarios, we need to miss in place the challenges that we face geographically here. So, by instance, I'm going to say it was necessary to present a sanctuary initiative here because we are so isolated and so vulnerable, if we want to see it that way, to the intrusions of ICE, and ICE being so abusive. That was a big time, the alert for us to say, okay, we need to organize and we need to protect ourselves.
Talk about the sanctuary movement in Humboldt County. As I looked at the website, it seemed like that was a tremendous piece of activism to go ahead and put that issue forth.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Well, we started in 2016. As I mentioned, Renee Saucedo, she started to put this in the local agenda of either board of supervisors or city council members. So it started in Arcata. Arcata was the first sanctuary place, city location in the entire county to be declared a sanctuary. And that was the decision of the city council members, which we applaud and we and they recognize this diversity. They recognize the inputs the population is asking and putting every day, and they decided to protect the immigrant community and declare a sanctuary. So from that time, 2016, we moved to the county level. We only had Arcata as a sanctuary, but it seems like an island of rights. If you see the entire map, we see the immigrant communities are in the mountains. Southern Humboldt is very populated of immigrant community. So we decided to go bigger, larger in the protection. We asked the supervisors to declare a sanctuary here in this county, and they were divided about this decision, but we couldn't wait, because in the stake it was really our lives, our rights, our families were being torn apart. And we decided to put it in the ballot. And this was a big move. For the first time, a sanctuary initiative was put in the ballot in the entire country, in the United States.
In the entire United States, Measure K that passed and went into effect in December of 2018, that was the first sanctuary vote in the country?
It's accurate. It's right. Amy, you know this Democracy Now! Show? She announced it, so it's legit. We are.
Well, that was when Amy Goodman announced it, then it was totally legit. What about the rest of the state? Are there other counties that have followed suit?
No yet. The local governments declare sanctuaries, but never the people. The people wasn't the ones voting the ballot for giving this right to the immigrant communities. It was more like the little government bodies that said, okay, let's do this, let's move forward. After Humboldt, in California, there haven't been a movement such as the one we had here, but we hope in the next times, in the next ballots, we see something like this.
You had people from around the state or the country get a hold of Centro Del Pueblo and ask them how they organized and ran this campaign to get it on the ballot and eventually win?
Yes, Paul, we have communication with groups in Yuba City, which is near Sacramento.
Right.
They have a detention center there that is also a prison, which means the immigrant communities are next to the population in the jail. There are no separation or division or protection. So they are very interested in passing a sanctuary law there, and we've been in communication to know more about how a grassroots can put this in the ballot. The first steps, the campaign, and then how to keep the fire going.
Okay, if I can switch gears a little bit and talk about the website. So much of the website seems like there's nuts and bolts information about, as I looked at it, about COVID right now, about where people can get tested, also about how to deal with immigration agencies like ICE and know your rights. How much of when you put together the website, is that what you envisioned it to be, like a manual, so to speak, for people to look at?
Yes, absolutely. We wanted to offer different information, bilingual precisely, because we have this lack of resources in Spanish. So we thought of the website as a tool for people to check what are the options there.
Now, do you have any idea how many people are checking it and using the website?
That's a very good question, and I'm calling here to the people that is watching this show to support us, because we need more volunteers that are savvy in the technique of how many visitors we have. With so few resources, a volunteer put together the page, and I've been, trying to publish this, but this is not my expertise. So if anybody is there listening, is bilingual, I want to support, just give us a call.
Are you getting that message out in Spanish to have people go to that website?
Yeah.
How do you go about getting volunteers to work and use to organize to bring your issues forward?
Yeah, we have different groups. For example, Humboldt State University is a very well place for the young people to get involved with the local communities. Another groups we often invite are families that are long-time participants of Centro del Pueblo. So we are speaking here about families mainly in Fortuna that have been in contact with us for different reasons and events. How do we organize this? Our main, I'm going to say, tool or channel is the assembly, the popular assembly, and we call them encuentros, which are larger gatherings where we talk about our issues, the issues we face every day, and then we talk about the solutions we think are the best. So this is a two-part gathering. First, we present a diagnosis, then we present the solutions, and we arrive to a conclusion in consensus. And that conclusion is a work agenda. And that's how we move forward.
Well, let me ask a couple more questions. How difficult is it when you say you organize in groups in a time of a pandemic to keep the energy going, to keep the momentum?
It is very hard because of the access of technology is not well spread in the county. So families that typically were together in a big room to talk about these issues, now they are in their houses confined to the shelter at home. So what we have done is little visits and little encuentros. So we multiplied the events just with 4 or 5 participants, and we keep the calendar. So in this case, the community organizers have been permanent and constantly visiting from Garberville to McKinleyville groups of families just to have these listening sessions and have this keep going. It's hard. The pandemic it's really, really diminishing even, the efforts, the energy, but it's our labor, the community organizers who needs to keep moving. The radio, for example, having that tool.
I was just going to ask, does Radio Centro play a significant role?
Absolutely. Our guests are the community members that are far and that we want to bring them to the radio show to talk about common issues we face. So yes, the radio is the platform right now where we can just keep communicating, keep in contact.
Have these been tough times politically to organize, or is it easier in a sense because some of the opposition, sometimes opposition is the best organizer, I always thought, that helps you bring the issues forward and people see the issue framed?
Yes, it's true, Paul. In my experience, personal experience, I mean, I am an immigrant from the Trump era. Like, I arrived here when Trump arrives to the presidency. So I don't have a point to compare before Trump, but I must say—
It's different, believe me.
Oh, I believe you. From the Trump times, I would say, yes, it seems like it's easier to identify even the groups that are, moving or conflicting. But as community organizer, and again, as an immigrant from Mexico, arriving in this context was even dangerous for our personal own safety. When we say we go to field work, we face also people that don't like us out there, and that they speak and act on that regards.
So you've met actual opposition?
Yes, violent actual opposition.
Wow. That's heroic organizing. What about other immigrant groups that see the model that you've created? Have people reached across to ask you about what Centro del Pueblo is doing for your community?
That's a very good question again, Paul. Well, when we started the sanctuary movements, the African American fellow came to the assemblies. So we have a BIPOC, even indigenous communities came. WIO tribe received us for speaking about sanctuary. Yurok tribe also make a statement. So that, I think the sanctuary really combine every people. They feel integrated in that movement. So other immigrants, for example, from Cameroon were participating in the movement for sanctuary. It's been a little bit more challenging with the Asian communities, for example, the Hmong. And this is a community we want to approach, but it's the dynamic, the social dynamic and labor dynamics are very interesting about them. So we haven't had the access or the networking, but other groups definitely they feel involved, they feel passionate, and they were working with us.
Is that something that's a goal that you're trying to do? Is enlarge the sanctuary movement?
Yes, well, absolutely. To communicate that everybody is there, even if the leadership was the Latinx, everybody is included in the sanctuary. I will say not only the immigrants, long-time or local residents now are safer because us as immigrants, we are, we trust to call the police to say, hey, I'm seeing something happening, or the fire station to say it's a fire. So we protect each other. Before, for us to get in contact with local agencies was a matter of fear. We didn't. We just get apart, and even if we see a conflict, we get apart. But now Sanctuary gives us protection, and Sanctuary tells us nobody's going to racially profile you, or nobody is going to share your immigration status. So we find that strength, and we call the local agencies.
Now, how much, as you've gathered and presented information, have you yourself learned the law as you try to teach people their rights?
Absolutely. That's one of our first, I assume it's my first homework because, again, Trump times put me in the spot of, oh my God, where I am. I need to know my rights, and I better hurry in order to feel protected myself.
Excuse me.
I found it as an essential surviving tool. We need to know our rights as immigrants in this country. And so, yes, for answering your question, we first learn, then we go and talk about that.
Now, where do you do that learning? Do you connect with people? Do you connect with legal teams? Do you connect with the ACLU? Who do you guys go to as your research or your resource? To research, who is the resource? There you go.
It's because of research is the word, because immigrant laws change oftenly. You have every 6 months a change in the immigration laws. So it's a constant updating in knowing this. ACLU is a big allies to know our rights. So the resource they have, it's unbelievable. We are in contact with the organizers for Northern California. So yes, we have long-time relationship with them. Unfortunately, we don't have any immigrant lawyer here in the county. So for us, we need to go to either San Francisco or Santa Rosa to receive legal assistance, or we can do it now in COVID times online. But again, let's think about people that don't have access to technology. So only for answer your question, ACLU, they are tough.
So you say we and us quite a bit. How big is your staff? How many people are working for Centro Del Pueblo?
That's been impacted also by the pandemic. Before and Sanctuary, let's talk about Sanctuary. We were really we have an assembly of 20 permanent people discussing the next actions. I had the pleasure and honor to coordinate some of the actions along 9 months. And then that was previous to the pandemic. After the pandemic, most of them moved from the county to their homes, or, the dynamic of Humboldt is also like that, a lot of mobility. So we get reduced to a couple. We were just a couple, long-time organizers there, standing with several volunteers that were more sporadic and less constant, but still with 2 people, we get to organize a program assistance for COVID relief. And right now, I'm proud to say we are 4 leaders. I'm coordinating directing Centro, and then we have this team of other 3 people, and which is a staff, and then we have more volunteers. But it's very, very variable right now with the pandemic.
You mentioned earlier how hard it was to keep up with immigration law. How difficult has it been, especially with a staff of just 4 people, to keep up with all of the information you need to present about the pandemic?
Yeah, there's been a titanic effort. Let me tell you, we are not full-time here. We are devoted to this labor. But I want to say Centro works also with strong allies. And for gathering information, for example, we need to take a training on technology and databases. So we are learning that from a biggest group that support immigrants and refugees in the state. And I thank them because they provide technology for us. We work with the DHHS in regular meetings in the county to know more about the resources they provide. We are part of our largest network that is called promotores, which are promoters for health or education, and we are part of it. So it is hard to gather information. We only as Centro, we did up to 500 interviews from July to November to different families, 500 different families, to know about their conditions and how to better support.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap this up. So a last question. I want to know how well received has all this been, because it just sounds fantastic and a great example of the power of grassroots organizing. How well received have you been?
I have been very well received for my allies and my fellow friends and my family, and very bad received for the opposition, people that oppose the immigrant rights. So it's very polarized, just like the country entire is.
Wow. So people can go to the website, they can see how they can volunteer, they can see how they can donate, and they can find out more information. Well, you're fabulous. I really respect all that your group is doing. And thank you for being my first Skype experience.
I'm more than happy.
Oh, right on. So for Access Humboldt's Community Voices and our guest, Brenda Perez, this is Paul Bressoud signing off. Thank you.
This has been Community Voices with your host, Paul Bressoud. Thank you for joining us. If you represent a nonprofit organization and are interested in being a guest on Community Voices, send an email to info@accesshumboldt.net or call 476-1798. Access Humboldt, local voices through community media.